Welcome to Native America Calling. I'm Sean Spruce. Jody Potts Joseph is the first Gwich'in woman to compete in the Iditarod dog sled race across Alaska. We'll talk with her about her experience along the grueling 900-mile race course. And we'll also check in with athletes who competed in this year's Arctic Winter Games in Canada's Yukon Territory. Team Alaska took home more than 200 gold medals during the week-long competition that combines traditional Indigenous games and mainstream winter sports. Stay with us. We're back after the news.
This is National Native News. I'm Antonia Gonzalez. After overcoming a cringeworthy confirmation hearing over his combative past comments, U.S. Senator Markwayne Mullin's nomination to be the next Homeland Security Secretary cleared a key committee vote. Correspondent Matt Laszlo reports on the bipartisan relationships he's built over his decade in Washington.
Contrary to the tough guy you may have seen on your screen, picking fights with union bosses or Senate committee chairs, Senator Mullin has lots of fans in Congress. New Mexico Democratic Senator Ben Ray Lujan serves with Mullin on the Senate Indian Affairs Committee.
Well, I may have some policy disagreements with Senator Mullin. Mark's Mark. That's who he is, So I don't know that there's anything out of sorts there. That's just who he is.
Lujan says Mullin's been a key ally on the other side of the aisle in today's divided Washington.
Not just, Democrat, Republican. He's been a member that tribal leaders have sought out to support different efforts.
While Mullin's Cherokee Nation, he stepped into a 137-year-long fight last year and played a pivotal role in helping North Carolina's Lumbee tribe gain full federal recognition over protests from other tribes. North Carolina Republican Senator Ted Budd says Mullin was pivotal.
He thought that the opposition by the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians in North Carolina was incorrect, and so as an enrolled Cherokee, he supported the Lumbees, and it's always appreciated.
Kansas Democratic Congresswoman Sharice Davids is an enrolled member of the Ho-Chunk Nation. For her first 2 terms, she overlapped with Mullin in the U.S. House. Besides the two both being former MMA fighters, David says Mullin and her put partisan differences aside and worked together for Indian country.
When he was in the House, we worked on quite a few tribal-related things, including trying to stabilize ICWA, Indian Child Welfare Act, and then also on foster programs and that kind of stuff. So we've been able to work together.
Masked ICE agents may garner the national headlines, but David says she's watching to see how Mullin handles the other parts of the sweeping Homeland Security Agency that outgoing Secretary Kristi Noem neglected.
I'm hopeful that he will be much better in terms of leading the department. Of course, there's hot-button issues, but when you think about FEMA and the importance of FEMA functioning, of our TSA folks.
For National Native News, I'm Matt Laszlo in Washington.
The Bureau of Indian Education is offering a career pathway for tribal students looking at wildland firefighting jobs. KJZZ's Gabriel Pietrozio has more.
High schoolers across 6 BIE-run schools are participating, including Northwest High School in Shiprock on the Navajo Nation.
This just happened to occur organically.
Carmelia Becenti is Danette and Chief Academic Officer for the Bureau of Indian Education. She credits President Trump's executive order on expanding educational freedom. They're also pitching the curriculum to colleges.
We are trying to somewhat steer them towards being stewards of our lands. That doesn't always happen.
Gar Fisher's with the BIA Division of Wildland Fire Management. He says they're teaching coursework about leadership, fire suppression, and FEMA readiness. Once done, students put their training to the test during a field day.
They get to put the gear on, how it feels. They get to look like a firefighter.
That equipment is expensive, says Becenti, which is why the BIE is buying it now. For National Native News, I'm Gabriel Pietrozio.
And I'm Antonia Gonzalez.
National Native News is produced by Koahnic Broadcast Corporation with funding by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Tribal Development Partners believe strong infrastructure strengthens tribal sovereignty. Through the 105L lease program, TDP helps align federal funding systems with long-term tribal priorities. More at tribaldevpartners.com. Proud to support this show.
Hear that? Tribal college faculty do so much. One can't say it all here. Nothing but respect. Visit mostthoroughdescription.com. The American Indian College Fund supports this program.
Native Voice One, the Native American Radio Network.
This is Native America Calling. I'm Sean Spruce. Hound-Gwich'in athlete, traditional tattooist, and environmentalist Jody Potts Joseph made her debut at this year's Iditarod, the 975-mile dog sled race across Alaska. She dropped out of the race after almost 700 miles because her dogs showed signs of illness. But her participation is a historic milestone for Gwich'in women in the celebrated race. Jody joins us today to talk about her Iditarod experience that included coming face-to-face with a wild buffalo on the trail. If you'd like to join our conversation with Jody Potts Joseph, give us a call right now. We're at 1-800-996-2848. And later, we'll introduce you to a couple of Arctic Winter Games athletes. The annual event concluded this week with Team Alaska coming out on top with more than 200 gold medals, or in this case, gold ulus, for figure skating, snowboarding, hockey, and traditional Inuit and Dene games. You can join our conversation. Call us at 1-800-996-2848 or just 1-800-99-NATIVE. Let's begin the show today talking about Iditarod with Jody Potts Joseph, who joins us now from Anchorage, Alaska. Jody, welcome back to Native America Calling. How you doing?
Thank you. Good morning. I'm doing okay, actually. Just a little disappointed, but I'm doing well.
I understand. You had to bow out of the race on Tuesday morning. Tell me more about how you came to that conclusion.
Well, for a few days, my dogs were kind of getting sick, and actually, one dog was sick for about 3 days with a kennel cough. Some of the front teams, expedition mushers that came from Norway, their dogs all were reported to have kennel cough early in the race. And I was just kind of concerned. I showed up with healthy dogs, and, I was concerned that eventually my dogs would catch it. And sure enough, one dog had it for about 3 days, and then slowly other dogs were getting it. And there was another gastric issue that was hitting dogs of vomiting, diarrhea, and not eating, and had about 4 dogs that were struggling with that for a couple of days. And, dogs, these athletes, they need to eat to be able to continue this endurance. And so, between both of those, the morning when I got to this cabin out on the trail and spent the night, I knew my dogs needed extra rest because I knew they were all getting pretty sick. And, the 25-mile run from the last village of Caltag to that cabin took much longer than usual. And so I knew that, they were, kind of fading as far as their energy and their performance. And so I thought, well, I'm going to give them a good rest here at this cabin and see how they are in the morning. And by morning, everyone was sick with that cough. And so if dog didn't have, this gastric issue, the stomach bug, then they had the cough. And then, within in the morning, 2 dogs were severely coughing, like couldn't catch their breath. And so that's when I just knew it just wouldn't be safe to continue. At that point, I had one completely healthy dog, that didn't have a cough or diarrhea. And I just figured, it's only a matter of time that dog gets sick. So, that's, kind of unavoidable when other dogs in the race are sick. And yeah, just super unfortunate, just really disappointing. Of course, my first concern is with my dogs, they're like my kids. So it was just the smart thing to do, and the right thing to do is just, of course, prioritize their health. And so that was the easy decision. Once I saw in the morning just how horribly sick they were, then, it was a pretty easy call, but of course, disappointing nonetheless.
How are the dogs doing now?
They're starting to recover. It seems like now, especially that they're out of, running in cold weather and winds and stuff. Their cough seems to be improving, but they were still coughing yesterday, and seems like the stomach bug that's dissipated. They all seem pretty healthy with that. So, but yeah, there's still a cough going around in my team, and so I think that'll take a little bit of time. But the real concern is that cough had been turning into pneumonia with a lot of dogs on the race, and that's where it's even, as you can imagine, that's even much more dangerous. That really elevates the risks of losing a dog. So I just wanted to, of course, prevent any pneumonia, but they're all on antibiotics right now, just preventative, trying to prevent it from turning into pneumonia. But they seem like they were happy, they're wagging their tails. They're happy to see me when because they flew out a couple days ago. My husband and my daughter picked them up and been caring for the dogs. And then I was able to finally get out of Unalakleet yesterday and reunite with my family and my dog. So that was definitely a happy moment.
All right. Well, that sounds like good news there, Jody. Now, one feature that was really, really cool is your dogs were dressed in traditional garments at the starting line. Tell me more about those jackets and how are those made?
Yeah, so our people here in the North took a lot of pride in our dog teams. I grew up, for one, traveling by dog team from our trap line back to our village and throughout the land and stuff. And so, I was kind of raised in the Basque dog sled. And then my mom was, it's gone back many, many generations, right? And one of the things that our people did was they would make dog blankets for their dogs, just like we have, these sporty dog blankets today, dog jackets. But back then they would, of course, put beadwork on them and decorate them really nice. And, a lot of it was just the pride we had in our dogs, and everyone took a lot of pride in their dogs. And it was also a way to, they would don the dogs with these beautiful beaded dog blankets before they would arrive in a village. They would put on also their best parkas and their nicest gear before they arrived in a village as a way of showing honor, intention, and respect when you're arriving at said village, and also just really, taking pride in your dog team and really yourself, And so I wanted to bring that back. I wanted to, really show up in a way that really is like a way to honor and respect our dogs, but also, highlight our culture and how dog mushing is really, came from our people. And I wanted to bring that aspect of our culture kind of to the stage. So
right on. Jody, tell me about this encounter with the wild bison. Did it charge you? What exactly happened? This just sounds crazy.
Yeah. Real quick, I just want to, about the blankets, the dog blankets, I just want to thank all the artists, all the native bead workers that worked on these blankets. They are Native women from Alaska and Canada. A couple of them are, Alaska Native Athabascan women that moved to the lower 48. But, when I put this call out for these blankets, within 24 hours, I had, dozens of women that wanted to participate and make a blanket. And so there were, really young Native women and, just Native women of all backgrounds, really, that, were Athabascan, but living in different places, doing different things. And it was just really special and a really amazing group of women. And I'm just super thankful to all of them and to the women at Doi Unlimited who also helped, kind of put the finishing touches on the, fringe and just the straps and stuff to secure to the dogs. So, between Robin Renfro and Janelle and some others at Doyon, it just all came together. It was a huge group effort. And, I just really appreciate all the extra love and prayers that were put into all these blankets. So I just want to make sure I say that and honor honor those women. So, yeah. But, yeah, so the bison, wow, that was something else. I knew, there's always, risks and dangers of wildlife on the trail. And I knew that there were also now these wood bison that are on the trail. These are transplanted bison. And so, I whenever I'm out mushing at home, I always carry my lever action 30-30, but I thought, well, in this race, it's heavy and it takes up a lot of space in my dog sled. I need to take a pistol. And I didn't have time the week of Iditarod to buy a pistol in Anchorage. And so I ended up borrowing a Glock from a friend. And so I had just left the checkpoint of Roan, crossed the river, and it was going up into the hills through the trees. And it was pretty dense trees and windy trail. And I just kind of came around a corner and there was this bison standing in the middle of the trail facing us. And of course my dogs, wolf throwbacks. I mean, they just all went wild. And so I just immediately set my snow hooks, which are the brakes, the things that you throw into the snow to hold the dogs so you're not standing on the brake. And so set those snow hooks, and I was that bison immediately put its head down and started pawing like it was going to charge. And so I'm quickly trying to grab my pistol out of my sled bag. And right as I grabbed my pistol out, that bison charged. And so I fired because it was charging right at my dog team. And I fired and it just went click. And that is the worst feeling. And all I could.
And with a Glock, no less, because they're supposedly they don't really jam. They pride themselves on being pretty fail-proof. Gee whiz.
Yeah, right. But the thing is winter conditions. It's pretty cold, and that's the big factor here. Is they don't do well in the cold, and it's being frosted up. And so I immediately was like, all right, that's definitely got to be the issue here. So I was, but the dogs right as the bison got to my dog team, the dogs all backed up a little. And so then it stopped. Okay, and then it backed up a few feet.
Jody,
and then bison backed up.
We've got to take a short break. We got to take a break. And I know your time is limited. Can you hang out a little bit longer so we can hear the rest of the story? Okay,
Absolutely.
We'll do that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, we're going to take a short break. We'll come back and continue our conversation with Jody Potts-Joseph, a borrowed Glock that jammed on the trail with a wild bison staring her down. We'll be right back. The long-standing fight over a Great Lakes oil pipeline is awaiting a decision by the U.S. Supreme Court. The ruling could have major implications for treaty rights and the regulation of the fossil fuel industry. There are additional legal decisions in the mix as well. We'll get perspectives on the ongoing legal battle on the next Native America Calling.
Attention tribal community leaders. The 2026 Tribal Self-Governance Conference takes place this April 7th to the 9th at the Gila River Wild Horse Pass Resort and Casino in Chandler, Arizona. Tribal delegation meetings using AI, Indian Health 101, land stewardship, tribal values-based communications training, understanding the tribal-federal relationship, and more, all at one convening. The full draft agenda and registration are available at tribalselfgov.org, who support this show.
Thank you for listening to Native America Calling. Let's continue now with our conversation with Jody Potts-Joseph and her Iditarod experience. Jody, I'm just gripped here. I want to hear the rest of this. And you need to make a movie about your life. It's just been, you got so many crazy things and interesting stories to tell. But
I know.
Continue on here with this wild bison that charged you.
Yeah, so this bison, just kept putting its head down and charging. So it charged like 3 or 4 times. And meanwhile, I'm trying to get this Glock to fire, and it does nothing but click. So I just give up on that Glock, and I realize I got to get up there to be able to hopefully scare this bison off from my team. Because, I mean, those horns look really sharp, and it's every time it charges at my dogs, it's closer and closer, and the dogs are backing up further and further, and they don't really have anywhere to back up any further. So I ran up to where my leaders were, and there was a tree there. So I kind of ran through the deep snow and the willows trying to get to the front of the team. And so I got up to that tree. First, I tripped over something under the deep snow and that I couldn't see. And so I'm flailing through the snow trying to keep my eye on this bison and just that it doesn't gore me, But I got up behind this tree, which I knew being behind this tree, it wouldn't be able to, hopefully it wouldn't be able to, gore me. And so I was just hollering at it, and I started grabbing sticks. I mean, there was just like little branches of this tree around. Nothing really good that could like fight it off, but I was throwing sticks and it wasn't phased, and put its head down, and it was about to charge again. And that's when I remembered what my grandma had done when her kids were charged by a grizzly bear at their house. She didn't have a gun. My grandparents had only one gun. My grandpa was out hunting. And so my grandma just got the kids inside, and she ran out and confronted that bear and spoke to it in our language and said, "Antlachincha chichine huchina," which means go away, have mercy on us. And so that just flashed in my mind. And so I said those words, "Antlachincha chichine huchina," and it lifted its head up from the I'm going to charge position, and it lifted its head up and it looked at me, and then it just turned around and trotted up that hill, and then it was just all calm again. Oh, and it was just such a weird, and I was kind of like, holy crap, did that really just happen? Like, I was just kind of looking around and like, am I hallucinating? Like that, but I mean, it definitely happened. There were the tracks. You could see in the snow where it had been pawing. It's right within feet from, I was like 10 feet from that bison. I mean, I could see every hair on its face, is that close behind that tree trying to chase it off. And, my dogs, I looked back at my dogs and they were in a mass tangle. I had, I think 11 dogs at that point, and they were all, really tangled. And I knew that there were 4 other mushers behind me. There was all these young mushers. I called them these kids, and they were getting ready to leave the checkpoint when I had left. And so I knew it was just a matter of time, maybe 30 minutes or so, that they would arrive. But I knew I couldn't continue down the trail because, being raised on the land, I know in deep snow like this, these animals don't want to get off the trail, especially these bison. It had short little legs compared to moose, which are all leg, And so I knew that bison wasn't going to want to get off the trail. And so I thought, I'm not going to continue down the trail until I have a working pistol. So I'll wait for these kids to show up, see if any of them have a pistol. And so, sure enough, these 4 teams show up. And so now we're all kind of holed up there with 4 teams. I asked them for a pistol. We test fire at first, and it worked. Meanwhile, which freaked out all the dogs. So everyone's dogs jumped and got tangled. So we untangled dogs and going down the trail. And so here I am leading these 4 teams up the trail through the woods. It's a really windy trail. And my leaders originally, my leaders that got charged first, they did not want to continue down the trail. And so I have 2 dogs that are like 3 years old that are kind of like hunters. Like when we're out running training runs, like they're chasing after marten, squirrels, grouse, anything. They're just like, they've literally caught ptarmigan out of the air, these 2 leaders, and brought them down the ground, and we had ptarmigan for dinner. So like these 2 particular dogs, I knew they're the ones to put in lead to get the dogs going again, because they were all pretty stressed out at that point. So I put my leaders, Sunny and Stormy, in lead, and sure enough, they just had us ripping down the trail after that bison. And that's, and I had another pistol now in my hand. So I was holding on to my sled with one hand, ripping around these corners, and a pistol in my other hand. And eventually, within a mile or so, there's that bison again. And so set my snow hooks. Of course, it put its head down again, was pawing, ready to charge. And that's when the musher behind me, him and I went up and fired a couple warning shots, and it finally took off down the trail. We gave it a little time. Once again, had to untangle dogs because the guns freak them out. And so, we eventually gave it a little time, got going down the trail, And then I could see his tracks in the middle of the trail, and I could see that it had been running. Eventually, I want to say after like 3 or 4 miles, it darted off into the woods. And so I was really glad to see that got out of the way, and we were able to continue down the trail.
One heck of a story. We've got some other guests on the show. I'm sorry, we're going to have to pivot and continue the conversation about the Arctic Winter Games, but I want to thank you again. You're always so great to have on the show and generous with your time, and just, you really make us all proud, Jody, with everything you've accomplished and you continue to accomplish. So just keep inspiring, okay?
Oh, thank you so much. It was kind of you. All right, Mossy, have a good one.
All right, thank you so much. We're going to pivot now to the Arctic Winter Games. They were held in Whitehorse in Canada's Yukon Territory. Athletes from all over the Arctic competed for gold, silver, and bronze medals, or ulus, in mainstream sports like hockey, table tennis, and curling, as well as traditional Indigenous sports like the high kick, the knuckle hop, and the arm pull. You can join this conversation with our athletes now. Give us a call at 1-800-996-2848. And our first athlete we're going to talk with is Kyle Worrell. He joins us from Juneau, Alaska. He is a traditional games coach and athlete. He is Tlingit, Degaton, Athabaskan, and Yupik. Kyle, good morning. Welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
Now, you are an accomplished Arctic sports athlete. How did you do at this year's games?
I feel pretty good about the games. I got 3 silvers and 1 gold, so I got to be proud of that. I took the gold in the overall, and then a silver knuckle hop, 1 hand reach, and kneel jump.
Now, the knuckle hop, we need to talk about that because there was actually a record that was set. And it was one, your dad had initially set that record back in the 1980s. Tell me more about the knuckle hop and how that competition went and this record that was set.
Yeah, the knuckle hop is a test of endurance and also pain tolerance. And the athlete gets into a tricep push-up position and hops on their knuckles and their toes for as long as they can. And we do this on a gym floor, and so the athletes will get bloodied knuckles and the skin breaks open, and it's quite a challenging game, and it's done by distance. And so this year, a new world record was set by Chris Skipdonk, and he broke the previous Arctic Winter Games record, which was set by my dad in 1988. And so that was one of the longest standing records, 1988, and it was one that both Chris and I were going after, and I congratulate Chris for having what it takes, because it takes a lot to break a record like that. But the history of these games are really interesting too, because a lot of people ask why do you play these games? Like, why would you hop on your knuckles like that? And it actually comes from a hunting technique that was used by Inuit or Inupiaq people in the north to sneak up to seals out on the ice. Because if you simply tried to walk up to a seal, you're going to scare it off, right? Humans are very distinct by walking on 2 legs, and polar bears are on 2 legs. So seals know to stay away from both humans and polar bears where we hunt them. So the hunters developed this technique by mimicking the motion of a seal hopping on the ice. And because we hunted seals, we could be dressed in seal skin, and this was the method used to be camouflaged in the seal skin and slowly hop towards that seal. And once you're close enough, you take your harpoon off your back and harpoon the seal. And then from that hunting technique came this pretty challenging game of strength and pain tolerance called the knuckle hop, or at the younger levels, they call it the seal hop, where they can do it on their palms instead.
I watched a video of it, and it is so fluid when the athletes are moving around. It's beautiful to watch. I mean, they really have a lot of technique that goes into that. It's a really fascinating event. Kyle, tell me more about some of the other traditional games that are played at the Arctic Winter Games.
You also have the high kick. So there's some of the most popular games where you'll see athletes kick 6, 7, 8, and over 9 feet in the air. And there's different types of high kicks. You have the 1-foot high kick, where you approach the ball, you jump off 2 feet, kick with 1, and then you have to land back on that kicking foot. And the rules go that every round the ball's raised about 4 inches. You have 3 attempts, and you're just trying to kick as high as you can. this game also has connection to the Arctic and Inuit people, and it was used as a form of communication. If you think about the Arctic, it's a relatively flat place, and before radios and cell phones, they would use these high kicks to signal of a successful or unsuccessful hunt. And so from that practical use, we turned it into a game that keeps us active, and it's fun at the same time.
Kyle, I was reading an article about you, and as a younger man, you weren't really into like some of the more mainstream team sports and things like that. You really felt a calling to these traditional types of games. Tell me more about that evolution of yours as an athlete and how you've become such a predominant competitor in these traditional games.
Yeah. My dad was an athlete in the 80s and 90s, and as a toddler, I remember him competing, but I didn't join until I was actually 17 years old. I was a pretty reserved young person. I didn't really get out a lot or do too many sports. I just didn't feel like I connected, or I lacked the confidence. And when I was invited to join these traditional games, I just assumed I would be no good or I wouldn't be welcomed. And that was the wrong assumption, because eventually I did get enough encouragement from mentors and family that were saying, yeah, you should really try this out. And I did. And I was really worried about trying out these native games and whether or not I would be accepted. But I remember my first practice, and I fell in love with it from the very first practice. It was, for me, a very validating space as an Indigenous person. I grew up in urban settings here in Alaska, and there was a lot of negative stereotypes about Native people, and I held some shame. But when I entered this practice, there was no shame there. Everybody was proud to be Indigenous. They were sharing not only the games, but their culture, their language, their foods. And it was just such an accepting place. And it didn't matter whether or not you were a good athlete. It was just that you're here, you're part of this community. And I fell in love with it, and I've made it my career. 17 years later, I'm still as involved as ever. So it's part of my career. I work with the local tribe, Tlingit and Haida, and we run a wellness program for really the reasons that I just explained on how it's such a inclusive sport, and it helps build youth confidence while also getting them physical activity.
Thanks so much, Cal. Really appreciate you joining the show and sharing all of your experiences as well. Let's bring Candace Parker, our next guest, into the conversation now. Candace joins us from Kenai, Alaska. She is an Arctic sport coach for Team Alaska, and she is from the Nome Eskimo community. Candace, good morning, and welcome to Native America Calling.
Good morning.
I'm interested in learning more about the Arctic Winter Games and how athletes qualify for the events. How does that work?
So athletes are selected based on their overall results competing in World Eskimo Indian Olympics, Senior and Junior Native Youth Olympics, and there are other invitations throughout the state, and we look at their overall results. I'm looking for an athlete that can compete, and it looks like we have 10 competitions. So we're looking for an athlete that at least can compete in at least 6 of those events.
Now, we heard Kyle talk about the cultural components of these traditional games. Tell me more about the vibe at the event. I've heard some people describe it almost like a family reunion.
I'd have to say I agree, and Kyle, you did a great job explaining the community. I know for myself, my first competition was in 1990, and 2026, I have ongoing relationships and connections with other territories throughout Canada, Greenland, and they still continue. But it is a community. And I think overall, looking at as a coach aspect, I see it as a community standing together and looking at the best of all.
Mm-hmm. Candace, do you have other family members who are athletes or former athletes?
Yeah, we had 3 generations competing this year, which was a proud moment. We had 2 athletes. I had my great niece, my great nephew competing in Arctic sports, had a niece competing in basketball, also had one niece who was a mission staff and another niece who was an official at Dene.
Candace, the people that can participate, that compete, I mean, it seems like such an interesting sport, such an inspiring sport, but at the same time, for somebody who's maybe not from a village or maybe not from Alaska or some part of Canada, it seems like it would be hard to gain access to this sport. But are there folks that just kind of come in, maybe even people who move up from the lower 48 and participate and get involved?
Yeah, senior CITC offers their senior and junior competitions. They're open to all, as well as the invitations that we have, and they're able to participate. There are some schools in Anchorage, and if they're participating in a school there, they can sign up and become an athlete through the school. If they're unable to find it within their community, they can reach out to CITC and ask if there was a school available to participate as an athlete. But it is open.
Okay, thank you, Candace. We're going to take another short break. We'll come back, and we have some more guests to introduce, to talk to about the Arctic Winter Games. We have Joanna Hobson, who is in Anchorage. She's also a coach and an athlete for Team Alaska. And we also have Amelia Mering, who will join us from the Northwest Territories of Canada. And she is a successful athlete as well. So stay with us. We'll be right back. And we've got the phone lines open as well, 1-800-99-NATIVE, for those who would like to join today's conversation.
Eighth Generation is a Seattle-based lifestyle brand owned by the Snoqualmie tribe, offering authentic native-designed blankets, jewelry, and gifts. More at Reservation Economic Summit booths 805 and 21 and at 8thgeneration.com, who support this show.
Ready to expand your reach and inspire change? Kaufman & Associates crafts culturally grounded communication strategies for Native audiences. More at kaufmaninc.com, KAUFFMANINC.com.
We're glad you're with us today on Native America Calling. You can join our conversation with athletes and coaches from this year's Arctic Winter Games. 1-800-996-2848 is the number to call. Let's now meet Joanna Hobson. She joins us from Anchorage, Alaska, and she is an Arctic Games coach and an athlete for Team Alaska. She is Inupiaq. Joanna, good morning. Welcome to Native America Calling.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, this was your first time competing in the Arctic Winter Games. Was it what you expected?
It was a lot more than what I expected. On a good note, I will say that I have a newfound respect. I always respected my athletes, but definitely a good reminder of kind of what the athletes go through.
What were your events?
I was actually on the Dene side of traditional games this year. So we competed in the Dene stick pull, which kind of mimics trying to grab a fish out of the water. It's used mainly to test your grip strength. And then we also did snow snake. And so it's about a meter long stick. And it's an outside game, so we spent 8 hours outside in like negative 10 degree weather, which was insane. But you throw the stick down a track, and you're trying to throw it as far as you can. Sounds easy, but it kind of gets squirrely and it goes everywhere. A lot harder than you kind of expect. We also did hand games, which is kind of gambling with sticks. You got to hide a piece, a trinket in your hand, and the opposite team has to try to find it. They use hand signals and calls. Very fun, very fun. We also did the finger pull, and we did pole push.
Finger pull and pole push. Joanna, what goes into training and practicing for these types of events? How how much time do athletes have to spend preparing and just getting in shape and the right kind of condition to be able to be competitive?
It's really a year-round thing. The type of games that we are doing in traditional Indigenous games is it comes from everything that we do. For example, like our finger pull, it goes. You're training to pull like a moose hide or an animal hide, so you're trying to put it around a frame to stretch it and dry it. So these types of, we're training throughout the year in the things that we're doing traditionally. On the flip side, you do want to definitely get into the gym and lift some weights because us people in the Arctic are definitely strong. I know I encountered some really strong Native women across the Arctic this past week. It was pretty amazing.
That is really inspiring. Joanna, I can hear a little bit of hoarseness in your voice, and our producers tell me that's because you were yelling and screaming so much at the games. But tell me a little bit more about, what the environment is like in terms of fans and spectators, and do people come from all around to watch?
Oh yeah. We had a pretty big contingency from Alaska drive up to come support us. Like Kyle was saying, our games we really are a community. Both Kyle and Candace were saying that, and I think that's really what drew me definitely into coaching, and then later signing up to become an athlete. But not only just from Alaska, people from Greenland were there, people all around Canada was there, and just kind of being that family environment, you really meet new people, and you find yourself not only screaming for your contingency, but those that you make family and you meet there. So yeah, I lost my voice this week screaming outside and cheering people on.
Well, I'm going to give you a chance to rest your voice here, Joanna, and bring our next guest into the conversation. This is Amelia Mering, and she joins us from Inuvik in the Northwest Territories of Canada. She's a member of Team Wayneman, which took gold in women's curling at the Arctic Winter Games. She's 13 years old, and she is Gwich'in First Nation from the Inuvik Native Band. Amelia, hello, and welcome to our show. It's great to have you.
Hi, thank you.
Well, I want to congratulate you on your gold ulu. Tell me about the last gold medal curling game you were in.
I played against the UA team Alberta North. We were losing down by 3 in the last end, but then we still kept strong, and we made all the shots to tie up the game. So we had to play an extra end, and our lead made a nice shot, a nice guard, and then a draw to the button. We continued with guards so the Alberta North girls couldn't hit our draw, so we won by 7-6.
Wow, nothing sweeter than a comeback victory like that, Amelia. Now, how did you first get involved with curling?
Well, in 2025, my friends asked me to join curling, but I was already in hockey, so my parents said I was too busy for that. But then after a while, they said I could, so I curled about 10 times before Team Wayman asked me to join their team next season.
What position do you play?
I play second, and my role is to hit the rocks out or draw to the button for points.
Tell me more about Team Wayneman and your other teammates. Are you all friends?
Yeah, we're all friends.
Okay. And I understand your mom is there with you. She's a big supporter for you, your family as well. Do they come to all of your events and your competitions?
Yeah, all of our family members were down there cheering for us.
So is curling pretty common then in your community? Do a lot of other people curl as well, or is it kind of more unique?
Well, mostly the younger kids curl up here, but like for the older people, it's mostly hockey.
Mostly hockey. Yeah, I'll bet up there in northern Canada like that. What are your goals, Amelia? How far do you want to go in the sport of curling?
Well, I'm starting my own team next year, and it's going to be Team Maring, and I'll be the skip. And I'll also be joining another Inuit curler at Atticus Welcome to try out for the Canada Winter Games mixed doubles tryouts. They are in Yellowknife, and if we qualify it will be in Quebec.
All right. Well, we're going to be pulling for you, Amelia. You stay in touch with us here at this show because we'd love to bring you back and just continue to talk to you as you evolve and you continue to improve and succeed in the sport of curling. Amelia Maring, who joins us from the Northwest Territories of Canada. And Joanna, I want to go back to you because listening to someone like Amelia, a young athlete who has won a medal, a gold medal, in fact, what do these medals mean in terms of a young person's athletic profile? And do some of these athletes parlay these experiences into additional opportunities or maybe professional ranks or other types of leagues?
Yes. Congratulations, Amelia. That's amazing. Definitely having that opportunity at such a young age to get those medals sets her up further to continue. And having the Arctic Winter Games in place and having that family and that aspect, that's huge for her. It's a great stepping stone and a great kind of platform to kind of start her career.
Kyle Worrell, I want to bring you back into the conversation as well, because again, when I hear someone like Amelia, a young person so competitive and so successful and having so much fun at the same time, what do you see in terms of getting more young people involved in traditional Arctic games? What does that take, and what's your game plan?
Yeah, I want to congratulate Amelia too. That sounds like an amazing achievement there. Me, I also work as a coach here in Juneau, and a lot of times it's just being consistent in your recruitment. Because when I joined as a young person, I said no the first 3 or 4 invitations, and that was just oftentimes how young people are hesitant to try new things. So as an adult, you can be an encouraging mentor and help build that space and that safety by building positive connections to youth, and hopefully they feel safe enough to try something new. So it is always hard to do new things, but it's important that we keep our traditions going by getting the younger people involved. And I think once they're involved, they realize how much of it is about community and support, and that's really uplifting, and that's what keeps them coming back to the sport.
Kyle, I know you've traveled extensively promoting Arctic sports. You've been in Norway, you've been in Paris, France. Of course, you've done events here in the United States and other locations like Washington, D.C. And what's your pitch? I mean, when you go and you meet folks who maybe have no familiarity at all with these types of sports, or maybe they've never even been to Alaska or even the United States, how do you sell this to folks?
Well, I think the sport itself is very visual, and the stories behind the games are interesting. So in that aspect, they sell themselves. They're interesting, they're unique, they're amazing feats of athleticism. But what's really important to me and why I do this is building awareness of Indigenous people and Indigenous people of the North. The North is becoming more of the main stage these days, and sometimes there's decisions made from places nowhere near the Arctic. And so it's important that people know that we exist, that we have our culture, we have our games, and that we our voices are important in these global decisions that impact the Arctic. So that's another part of my mission around sharing the games is just building that human connection, so that when people think of the Arctic, they think of real people and not just a place where they have no connection to.
Thanks, Kyle. And another one of our guests, Candace Parker, is an Arctic sport coach for Team Alaska. And Candace, I understand you've gotten a lot out of the sports by the way they strengthen your connections to your culture. Tell me more about that, and what is it about these experiences that make it such a strong cultural experience for so many athletes like yourself?
I would have to say the pride of making culture cool again, making that connection. I know with my journey, finding people that are celebrating culture on a platform like Arctic Winter Games, watching people from Nunavut, Quebec, speak their dialect, and I'm like, oh man, I could speak as well. So those kind of exposures give that encouragement to go back to my community and ask the questions, what can I do differently to embrace our culture and be proud of it? So yeah, there's a lot of, I think the first games that I competed in 1990, there was not much in way of wearing traditional garments. And fast forward to today, there's a lot more garments being worn. It's a lot of pride. So
it sounds like it. And since 1990, definitely the games are evolving. Are you also noticing just more people competing, more people coming as spectators? Is the sport growing?
The sport is definitely growing, and congratulations, Amelia, as well. And Joanna, congratulations. Way to show up, not only as a coach, but as an athlete. Super proud of you. And Kyle, great job. The sport is growing. And one of the things I like to say to some of my athletes and people that I make connections with, if not you, then who? And if not now, then when? And really would like to acknowledge Kyle going out there and creating those connections, like really thinking about what can we do different to get that involvement into this sport. And a lot of it is pride or encouragement and showing up. And I think we talked about selection, and one of the things that I wanted to share here today is that I look at the athletes and these, like, would I take them hunting or would I not take them hunting? Because we talk about it being survival, right? And it's like, oh, this is survival. And it's like in that split second, I see myself as the captain of the boat. Would I take them? Because you only have about a second to make a decision. Is this the right team? Is this the right crew to make that decision to go left or to go right? And that's what you're looking for, the strength and to trust each other with our lives. So when I make selections, I would take you hunting or I wouldn't take you hunting.
That's a really, really powerful analogy. And what do your athletes say? Like do you tell them, hey, I'm sorry, you're just not quite ready yet, I wouldn't take you hunting? What's their response?
They're taken back. Actually, their head goes like, you wouldn't take me hunting? I'm like, yeah, and this is why. If you doubt me, then we don't have an established trust. I'm like, seek to understand and make that connection. And if they're open to or receptive to hearing that kind of feedback, and it's like, hey, take this into account the next time you go up to kick. Be more open. Don't beat yourself up. I need you to move past the moment and know that there's another opportunity around the horizon to have a successful hunt. And they're like, oh, I never thought of it that way. And you watch that growth. There are others that just kind of shake it off, but for the most part, they're pretty open to it, and it hits them in the jugular a little bit. But
I'll bet. Yeah. Candace, thanks for joining the show today. We're going to have to wrap it up. We're out of time, but I want to thank everyone, including our other guests who joined us: Jody Potts-Joseph, Kyle Worrell, Amelia Mering, Joanna Hobson, and of course, Candace Parker, who we just wrapped up with. Great show today, and really appreciate all these folks taking their time to educate us and inspire us as well. Please join us again next week for another exciting lineup of conversations about Indigenous issues and topics. Our executive producer is Art Hughes. Our producers are Andy Murphy, Sol Traverso, and Joe Thompson. Marino Spencer is the engineer. Sho McPolin is the digital producer. Nola Daves Moses is the distribution director. Bob Peterson is the network manager for Native Voice One. Clifton Chadwick is our national underwriting sales director. Antonio Gonzalez is the anchor for National Native News. Charles Sather is our chief operations officer. The president and CEO of Quantic Broadcast Corporation is Jacqueline Salee. Have a safe weekend. I'm Sean Spruce.
Tribal colleges and universities support their students in countless ways. They say I believe and offer help before it's asked.
Hear that?
Fully give grace.
That's everything tribal college faculty do for their students on Fast Forward. Because if one tried to say it in real time, they'd be here all day. They teach, guide, comfort, and connect. And for that, the community is grateful. Learn more at mostthoroughdjobdescription.com. The American Indian College Fund supports this program.
They give extensions, share progress, share laughter, create calm, and allow reflection. They inspire hope, share wisdom, guide gently, validate feelings.
Who protects Indian country? Amerind does. As the only 100% tribally owned insurance carrier, Amerind helps strengthen tribal communities by providing reliable insurance coverage and keeping dollars in Indian country. From property and liability to commercial auto and tribal workers' compensation, Amerind is here to protect what matters. Celebrating 40 years of serving Indian country. Learn more at amerind.com. That's AMERIND.com.
Native America Calling is produced in the Annenberg National Native Voice Studios in Albuquerque, New Mexico by Quantic Broadcast Corporation, a Native nonprofit media organization. Funding is provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting with support from the Public Radio Satellite Service. Music is by Brent Michael Davids. Native Voice One, the Native American Radio Network.